Okay, so we're just gonna do a quick recap. I want you guys to tell me, why does Islam not make it a point to try to prove God's existence? Yes.
3 reasons why.
What are they?
3 or 4 reasons, I believe.
Okay.
One of them is the fitna. So we have this innate being inside of ourselves that already tells us that Allah exists.
That what?
That Allah is.
Okay. Right. Okay, that's one. What else?
Wait, what did she say? I couldn't hear her. Sorry.
She said, yeah.
What? Oh.
Wait, someone say it. Oh, the fitra? Who's asking?
I already saw it.
What's the actual definition of fitra? By the way, you guys can use your notes. It's fine.
The synonym of that word starts with a T. I don't remember, but it's like staying intact for some way. Like it's a synonym of this word, and that word itself.
You can just say the English. It's fine.
Yeah, I don't know the definition.
Okay.
The actual definition.
Anyone know it?
Innate.
Yes. What was that?
It means innate, like being born, who you're born with.
Yes. Okay, your inborn inclination, right? So can someone give me an example of like one thing Fitra tells you? You don't have to raise your hand. There's like 10 people here. Just call out. It's not a big deal.
Morality, morals.
Okay. All right. What else?
Conscience.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Conscience. Yeah.
Like.
You learn the right things to do and wrong things to do.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just inborn. You just know generally good and bad, right? How do we know Fitra exists? What proof do we have for that? You don't have to do this one. Don't do this one. Yeah, this is just review. How do we know it exists?
Wait.
If you're talking to a skeptic that says, okay, you're saying that this inborn thing is in everyone, but how do I know you're telling me the truth? What's the proof for something like that? That anyone, regardless of their religion or anything, they have it. What's the proof for that?
The fitra pertaining to morality, or the fitra pertaining to Allah subhanahu.
In general, how do you prove it?
How do I prove it?
Imagine like an IW, someone comes up to you and you tell them that, you know, in Islam we don't really talk about proving God's existence much because it's just a given. And then you start talking about the fitra, and then he's going to ask you, well, how do you know this exists? You're talking about this, but how do I know you're right? Yeah.
Like when they're in like certain situations where like they can't depend on anything else, and then they just remember that, you know, like their last resort is like to ask God to help them.
Exactly. Extreme need. Yes.
What about like societies that are not, they don't share values with other societies, so like Amazon people or whatever, never been discovered, and they have like some really weird habits and stuff, so how would that be explained Islamically?
In what sense though? Like what weird habits?
Like stuff that might be counterintuitive to what we consider fitna.
Okay, so we're going to actually talk about that a little more in detail today. So I'm going to wait for that, inshallah. That's a good question. Okay. Okay, that's it for fitra. So fitra is like shown in like real extreme need. I was telling you guys a story last time about my friend who's an atheist that we used to have debates in high school, the entire high school. And then I stopped talking to him for like 3 or 4 years. And then he texted me out of the blue because he had some neurological disorder. And he was hospitalized. He like left school. This kid's really smart. He's in pharmacy school, so he's a pretty smart kid. And he texted me like out of the blue saying, you know, I think I'm suddenly starting to believe in God. And this is because, you know, this is only after he went through that extreme medical condition that he was able to really think about God. So extreme need. That's how we see it. Okay. Give me another reason. Why does Islam not try to prove God's existence?
The reason here would be that the creation itself proves that the Creator exists.
Okay.
So, if you want an example, it would be in the case of Sahaba or Sahabis, they didn't have any doubts inside of themselves, because how can there be doubt if they exist and they know that their Creator also exists?
Right. Okay, so like if you see creation, you think creator. Just like when you see a watch, you know that there's a watchmaker. That's Paley's watch example, but we don't really study it, but that's general idea. Okay, third reason was signs of creation. Just some other things that are very interesting about alteration of night and day and that kind of stuff. Fourth reason is sending of prophets and books. We talked about how this a lot of people focus on, but that's not the focus. The miracles that the prophets came with, that's not the focus of the message. The focus is the message, okay? It's not the miracles that were the focus. The message was the focus. Okay, so just as a recap, once again, on the summary slide, if you guys have that, on Islam's approach to proving God, it doesn't. It doesn't really try to prove Allah's existence because it takes it as something that's self-evident, okay? And the other thing that we briefly talked about was that most atheists don't deny God out of rationality. Like, they don't really believe that there could possibly be no God. They just deny it out of desire. They deny it because they don't want to be governed by a religion. That's why a lot of people choose to be agnostic, because they don't want to conform to any set guidelines. That's easier to live without conformation. Okay, so last thing we talked about was how most people in the world throughout history actually don't have a problem with this. Most people don't have an issue with this branch of Tawheed al-Rububiyyah. This whole thing that we talked about with the existence of God and everything, that entire thing is not an issue for most people. Majority of people already believe that there is a God, and even the religions that are polytheistic, they actually believe in one ultimate God. Even the religions that are polytheistic. So this idea of a Rabb is not the main problem. And actually, prophets did not even come with the purpose of trying to prove God's existence. No prophet came with that purpose. Okay? So today we're going to talk about the second branch of Tawheed, which is the focus of our creed and our belief. Like when we're studying faith, this branch is the focus. And this is something that the prophets emphasized, and it's something that's emphasized in every single page of the Quran. So it's something that's very important. That's why we have to study it in depth. The first branch was very simple, and this one's also very simple. It's not like it's difficult. It's just that we study it a lot more, and it's more the focus. But we still talked about Rububiyyah. So this slide, if you could just put this up there. So why was Rububiyyah important to talk about in the first place? A couple of reasons. First thing is that the Prophet, actually a man came to the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said that the tenets of Islam are too many for me, so say something that will be easy for me to do. So he was overwhelmed because there were so many things for him to do as a Muslim, and he just he accepted Islam. I think he was a Bedouin, and he wanted the Prophet to tell him something that's really easy for him to do. So then the Prophet ﷺ told him, "Qul Rabbi Allah, thumma istaqim." Say your Lord is Allah and then stay firm. So this idea that understanding that your Lord is Allah is very critical to keeping yourself steadfast.